So very, very warm welcome to everyone into the Sangha Live session. And yeah, I hope you're doing well and feeling okay to be settling into this space of Sangha and community. My name's Nathan. I'm going to be guiding the sessions this week, and I'm really looking forward to being with this community, looking forward to settling into our explorations and all that kind of goes into this coming together in practice, this coming together to explore these teachings. And yeah, firstly, just want to acknowledge the beautiful, warm sense that you can have of this community by just tuning into the chat. So if you haven't already got it open, there's something that looks a little bit like a square speech bubble on the bottom right corner. Click that, open that up. You'll see there's all these messages flowing through. So have a little look there and really feel free to get involved. It really is a warm and welcoming community. If you haven't yet, announced your presence through the chat, really feel invited to do that and share where you are, how it is where you are. This gives us a little bit more sense of our community. As you'll know with this name, Sangha Live, we're live here together, and Sangha is this community. It's a gathering of community of practice together. So some of you will know me from previous sessions, but I'll maybe just give a very brief outline of who I am, what I'm up to. So I'm a Dharma teacher, insight meditation teacher, Gaia House, part of the Gaia House Teacher Council at this time, and also founder of Sangha Seva, with a few other Dharma teachers, Rob Babea, Zohar Levi, who felt the need to create something that would bring more engaged whole life practice to the social and environmental situations of our time. So more about that perhaps as we move through the week, and more about today's session shortly. So we've got an hour here together. We'll have time for a Dharma reflection, we'll have time for a meditation, we'll have time for questions, responses, reflections from you. So when we get to that time, I'll kind of explain how that works a little bit more, but we'll use the chat. We'll use the chat in kind of a more functional way. We'll kind of maybe put capital letters, question at the beginning, or reflection, or anything like that, so that we can see those, we can find those, and I can respond to those. It's also possible to come on the screen. So just kind of having that in the back of our minds for now. That's something that we can do. So really lovely, as I say, seeing these warm and welcoming messages in the chat. Another thing that we can do with the chat is actually use it as another way of tuning into Sangha, which is actually mentioning a little bit, what are we here for actually? What's our intention there that we're kind of bringing with us? So I have my ideas of what to explore within this session, but I think it's actually quite possible that we can shape this towards, what are you here for? What do you want to see more of? And I think this is a really significant question for us. What would you like to see more of in your life? What would you like to cultivate? Meditation, the sense it's a cultivation. When we cultivate, and I can see there's a beautiful picture of a enormous tree coming in from Washington, DC. At one time, that was a seed. Something, some part of nature, the tree, the good fortune of the earth opening a way, planted that seed into the earth. And our meditation can be like that. So what seeds do we want to plant? What do we want to give further growth to? What do we want to help nourish? What do we want to help develop? What do we want to help sustain? Yeah. And this wise, appropriate intention is actually where our path is born. It's born in those seeds. And it's really helpful for us just to reflect, what is it? What's the seed I want to plant? And let's use the chat for that for a moment. Anything that comes, it could be very specific to your life right now. It could be specific to the world around us, how the world seems to us. What do you want to see more of? What do you want to support? What do you want to develop? Could be something in your relationships. Yeah, as I say, it could be something your heart needs, the world needs, your relationships would benefit from. We just pop those in the chat, and it's also kind of a part of Sangha building. So, oh, what are you here for? What am I here for? Lovely to see these. Love, love and peace, calm, calm and peace. Yeah, a lot of calm, equanimity, less reactivity. It's really good to hear this. And, obviously, it's really good for me to hear what it is that you're looking for, looking to support. Yeah. And when we tune into those, feel into those, understanding what we're coming with, what others are coming with, what they're coming to bring into being, why we're coming to this session. Also, it speaks a little bit, it's like what we're coming with, what we're coming with the desire for, the wish for. So it's taking this mindful moment as we arrive, feeling into that intention, intentionality, actually feeling into how we are. How's the body? How's the heart doing? How's the mind? How can those intentions settle like seeds that can take root into our experience? So those who are just arriving, seeing all these beautiful words being thrown into the chat, we're just sharing our intentions as if we're planting seeds. May they take root into our experience, into the world. So yeah. And even if you don't know what's going on, just seeing those words can be just a beautiful thing. I think that when we hear an intention from ourselves, from others, it starts to actually germinate, doesn't it? It actually starts to, warmth, healing. Oh, that feels nice. Yeah. The patience, the compassion, connection, acceptance, deep acceptance, radical acceptance. How those feel. Sharing our intentions brings more and more that Sangha sensibility to life, which means it changes things for me to hear those, to see those. I'm touched by that. Things are changing. They're always changing. And they're not actually changing randomly. Right? Doing that, on the whole, often feels good for me. To see your intentions, to tune into my own intentions on my own at times. Okay, so Sangha Live's inviting us this month. Don't know if this is on everybody's radar, but it's actually inviting us to reflect on change, how things change. Yeah. And we can notice change with just, kind of like, oh yeah, everything changes. But we can also notice that change with a real deep kindness and all of our intentionality. Everything that we've mentioned, bring that flavor in, just notice how things are changing. So I gave a description for this week and a title. I think it was That Changes Everything. Notice how all conditioned things change. It's something that we can kind of draw from the Satipatthana Sutta, this mindfulness sutta, literally the stations or foundations of mindfulness. So I want to speak a little bit about this phrase. And over the week, I'm actually going to unpack, different words in that phrase. So we'll start at the beginning. We'll start with notice. So mindfulness is to notice what's happening. Mindfulness is actually to remember, to recall again and again, that repeating again, recall it again, call the heart, mind, body to experience. Remember also what is possible for us. We might also remember that it's going to change. So the Satipatthana Sutta is a really deep dive into noticing experience, and so much can come from noticing. But I would say noticing isn't the goal. But critically, so little can actually come through without noticing. So we actually train in noticing. But this noticing, it's a quest. It's led by questions. It's led by our intentions. You've got that intention there, the most recent one, reduce suffering. Really very much the Buddha's intention there. Yeah. Remove, reduce, erode, dissolve, stress, tension, agitation. Those causal conditions of suffering in our lives. So we have this quest, this noticing is necessary for this quest, this journey led by our questioning, led by our intentions. And we notice the body. We notice the feelings, how things feel, pleasant or unpleasant or neither. We notice the state of the mind. We notice other ways experience is being shaped. And these are the stations, the foundations, the places to rest that mindfulness. And we notice how that is. And of course, when we notice how it is, we will also notice how that changes. Rather than notice how all conditioned things change, more accurately in the teachings, it's saying seeing how it originates and how it disappears. And we will dive a little bit more into this word how starting tomorrow. I think it's probably a real hinge word for us here. But in a way, today, noticing that it changes, noticing what we notice, and noticing how it is for us to notice, to be more present, how that changes as we notice. And of course, we will become more mindful of change, more mindful of our experience. When we're practicing in this way, often we start with the body, and the instructions often start with the body. So just to say it at the beginning, it isn't going to feel right for everybody to start with the body. Yeah, maybe the body doesn't feel comfortable, doesn't feel safe, doesn't feel appropriate at this time. That's fine. We can start with the sounds. Like the sounds are present. They are certainly very, very transient. They're moving through. We can rest our attention with that. But I'll speak as if we're all working with the body, but knowing you don't have to work with the body here. You can also work with many other things. We're not going to go to the mind too soon. We're not going to go to the intellect, the emotional flow. It's often too slippery. It's actually changing too much. And it's also a little bit too much alluring to more thinking and gets sticky that way. A little bit difficult to more objectively notice. But we will get there. The mind travels in space and time like something not of the world in a sense, right? But of course it must be. But the body much more evidently is made like the world of matter, an inconstant flow of earth, air, water, fire, energy, all of that. What a change it makes that we can notice what is happening in the body. And it's amazing how disconnected from bodily life we can be. So our practice is to notice what's happening in the body. Notice what's happening in the body. Not just to notice, as I say, it's a quest here. We're actually here for calming the bodily fabrication. Speak a bit more about how much that is even more than calming. It's more maybe like quietening, de-stressing how the bodily life is coming into being. I'm mentioning this because I just want to say, don't rush ahead to calm the mind and say, my mind's too busy, I can't meditate. No, that's not the goal. The goal isn't to calm the mind. The goal is when you can, notice what's happening in the body, or as I say, in the sound space if you're working there. Aha, great. I notice what's happening in the body. The mind will dance through space and time. That's its gift. That's its beauty. And we want that. We don't want to stop that happening. But what we're trying to do now is actually notice, there's a body here. Oh yeah, there's a breath. we're also not just going to notice, we're going to shape our experience a little bit. Breathe a bit longer. Take your time with this. Feel it deeply. Maybe feel it led by the diaphragm more than led by the nose. It's not like this sucking in, blowing out. Sorry if that's annoying on the microphone and your ears. Led by the diaphragm, it's more like coming through that. Nice. Take your time, give your time and your attention. There's a body here, there's a breath. We can meet it. Got time. And then what do you notice? What do you notice in that? What do you notice when you're less reactive? Letting it go, letting it stay, letting non-reactivity lead that way. Yeah. And of course, what will we notice? Everything in this body, heart, mind changes. We're knowing the world on the move. Yeah. And what else will change? Attention. Attention comes and goes. But still, try not to be too tight. Right? More than focus, aim for receptivity. Like a spacious attention. Right? No one, when we shared our intentions here, said, I want to be more tight. You know? No, so remember that. Like, if focus makes us tight, then just aim for receptivity. Right? A lot of people mention this calm, compassion, lessening reactivity. Let's practice that way. It's being relaxed. But also not just being floppy and going with the flow, right? That's not what this change teaching is about. So let's take 3 breaths at a time. Really feel them. Receptivity, receptivity. And then we relax a bit more, right? Because we can get too tight with this. Attention is going to come, attention is going to go, right? If we can make it come more than it goes, then we're really onto a winner, right? But any moment that we notice it's gone is only possible because it's actually returned. So we take the celebration view and say, oh, I've noticed I'm back. Not, I noticed that I've been gone, right? The celebration view is focusing on a little bit overly optimistic, perhaps, but in a skillful way, useful way. Ah, it's here. I'm here. What should we do? Soften, spacious attention. We're going for receptivity, not for focus. I don't need to squeeze. I can soften into the body. Yeah, soften into the body. And become mindful of change, mindful of the body changing, mindful of the sounds if the body's not feeling right. And don't worry about your inconstant thinking. Yeah. Don't worry about any inconstant thing, any changing thing. Okay, thoughts, fine. But this moment, very clear with our intention. What are we here for? And let's do that through sensitivity to the body. Yeah. So that's the suggestion for the practice. It'll become even more clear as we settle into this practice together. What we're going to try and do is not overly manipulate our experience, but also keep on tuning in, feeding in, and settling in. So let's see if we can be with 3 breaths at a time. And slowly, we'll build that up and we'll be little pockets of mindful presence. Mindful noticing what's here. Mindful noticing how it changes. How it changes. Nothing really to grasp onto. Nothing really to get so reactive about. So settle into what feels like a helpful posture for you. I'm gonna sit here because it's convenient for me to be able to, see the screen, see the chat, see the notes, and do let me know if you lose connection in some way through the chat, and I'll do what I can to fix that up. So I'll be the tech support, but I'll also be guiding this meditation now, and we'll settle into this posture. Could be standing for you, could be reclining, could be walking, of course. All of these are possible. Let's start with feeling the spine in the body, letting that find a sense of alignment. Whatever posture we're in, it can be helpful to feel how the spine joins the pelvis, joins the hips down there. And it's rolling those hips forwards, that spine connection, just feeling that fluidity in the spine, softening, opening up. Roll it forwards until it really feels that the belly space can open up for us. That soft belly is really going to help with the receptivity. We can imagine it will, right? More that we can get that belly open, soft, relaxed. And we can almost, if your imagination goes that way, actually attend to life from the belly. We're not focusing from the face, attending from the belly, the whole of the being, eventually. And it's coming up the spine a little bit. Coming up the spine, perhaps behind the heart area, behind the chest. We have that breastplate. Maybe it feels like it's on the front of the body, but actually let it connect to the spine. And let that whole space then kind of open, letting the shoulders open, letting the heart area, the chest, be relatively open. Feeling how that feels. And we keep on going up the spine, whether we're standing, reclining, sitting, walking, all of this should be possible. We're going to feel as if the neck elongates. There's like a string pulling up from the top of the crown of the head. Maybe then as those muscles relax, just lowering, maybe even tucking the chin, supporting a balanced sense of the head and a softness, deep softness, going down through all of the muscles, any of the muscles that can relax, that aren't needed for holding this posture. And we might even find ones we thought were needed aren't so needed. Let the hands rest on the legs or together in the lap, or whatever's available for us, down at the sides. Let's become mindful of the breath, noticing the breath with kindness. Prioritize kindness. Notice the flow of the breath, how it's felt. Or if we're in the sounds, notice the flow of the sounds, how it feels to notice sounds just flowing through, arising, passing. And particularly with the breath, noticing it around the belly area, the balloon of the abdomen, the diaphragm lifting and falling, and feeling like that's moving the breath, like a billows. You open the handles of the billows, opens that balloon, air is pulled in. And close those billows, close that balloon, air is pushed out. It's not being like a vacuum cleaner nozzle, thinking that that's what's going on. It's sucking at the nose or the mouth. It's actually much more deeply grounded experience. And see if you can be with the next 3 breaths, guided from deep in the being, deep in the belly. Maybe the next 3 breaths, we could imagine it's almost like a friend has invited us. Oh, I've just seen this amazing painting. I've heard this amazing music. Or have a look at this beautiful sunset. We know there's something here to notice, but we don't maybe know what it is yet. Something amazing about this next in-breath. I promise you, it's something really incredible. You want to try and pick it up at the first moments. The next 3 breaths, really notice the in-breaths, how they feel, what we can notice. And of course, the mind might make a story about that. Oh, yeah, the in-breaths, they're like the waves coming up on the beach. And then, oh, when I went to the beach, and we go off into that story. Remembering here to feel how it feels. That's what we really want to notice. How does it feel, though? In-breaths, next 3 in-breaths, how do they feel? And maybe the same friend or another friend suddenly think, wow, there's something really amazing about the out-breaths. You gotta come and listen. Listen to it sing, listen to how it flows, listen to how it feels, this out-breath, with the sounds, the fading of sounds. Amazing, isn't it? When you notice the fading of a sound, next 3 breaths. Oh, so when the mind wanders away, oh yeah, of course you wander away. You might even just notice, what was that about? Not how did that start, but really, what was that? Oh, I was planning. Often I notice, oh, I'm planning for future happiness by giving up on present happiness. Maybe there's actually some joy in this out breath, exhalation I could enjoy. Maybe this friend is going to say, the in breaths, the out breaths, they're not what it's about. Those gaps in between, those almost stillnesses in the breath. Feel those, notice those. Be present with those for the next 3 breaths. How are those? Noticing what we need to rest, to open, to soften, to be more receptive for good listening, better listening. Maybe it's time to guide yourself to the whole of the breath, feeling those different dimensions coming together like a song, like a symphony, like a full art piece, like a sunset. The in-breath, the gaps, the out-breath, the stillness. The same thing with the sounds. When the mind wanders, we just notice, am I planning? Am I recalling? Fine. Nothing stays the same. Nothing's meant to stay the same. Attention too is supposed to come and go. But breath, how are you? Restless or dull, tight or expansive, blocked or flowing? Being with that. Maybe even with that way that we attend, we're calming the restlessness, enlivening the dullness. Wishing well through our intentions and our attention. Letting those intentions be alive as we attend to what's present. Noticing where the attention is, noticing how it feels in the body, noticing how it feels as we become more present. No sense of disappointment if the mind has wandered. How are you? Restless, agitated? Have a nice out breath. Dull. To enjoy an in-breath, waking all of that up. If there's anywhere that feels tight, constricted, maybe we can soften. Listening to the breath, to the body, listening to the sounds more spaciously, more expansively, more fluidly. The mind, the intellect will wander, will create fantasies, memories, to-do lists, all the rest. But it will also return at times. When it returns, celebrating, enjoying, maybe having a really nice breath, listening to sounds in an enjoyable, receptive way. Noticing what you notice about your life. This is your life. this moment of attention, this moment of experience. These last few minutes, just checking again what we notice, but also notice how it's changed when we feel the balloon of the abdomen leading the breath. It's quite grounding to be resting the attention down there. Breath is invited in more from that space. Feeling the energy of the breath. It brings in terms of brightness on an inhalation maybe, or how it encourages that spaciousness as the breath flows in. It's that energy of the relaxation, the release of the out-breath. It's these last few minutes, really noticing that. Noticing if we're with the sounds, where our receptivity easily goes, what it more struggles with. Noticing the space that sounds appear in, disappear through. That fabric of listening consciousness. Noticing what we notice. Notice that we can notice all kinds of things. Noticing how it is to notice what's going on in the body and how often we're quite disconnected. Notice how we can rest, just listening to sounds. How much we normally overlook. Noticing that we can change what we notice. It's quite a freedom. We can notice what we notice. We can choose to notice more. And when we notice how it is, we can soften it, open it, brighten it, soothe it. But we must first notice. Noticing if there's any appreciation for yourself for doing this practice today. Notice any sense of appreciation of doing this practice with others today. As we breathe deeply and listen widely, you can let in many of the nourishments of practicing. And I like this advice of how to close a meditation. Don't come all the way out. Don't come all the way out. So as we bring this to a close or to a transition, retaining what feels supportive in the way that you notice, the way that you attend to your experience. You're going to continue breathing, continue listening, so we can continue practicing to some degree, not coming all the way out. Taking your time. Thank you for your practice. As I said at the beginning, it's always a pleasure to come into the Sangha Live space and, feeling this sense and of community, of friendship, of solidarity, and also noticing kind words from old friends and new friends, and or part of this community together. It's really, really delightful, really touching that so many of us are here together to practice together, to explore these teachings together, and to have come here with such rich intentions. And I really love the sense that we can have, which is, there's a lot possible for us with these practices. And what we come with is quite profound things. And interestingly, the way that we practice can actually allow those to become nearer, become more pronounced, become more profound. And I think it's uniquely amazing of what's possible through the nature of our consciousness that is, perceiving experience, and that those perceptions, those ways that we perceive our world, our reality, our inner space is very, very up for being adjusted. It's quite malleable, quite malleable. So if there's any questions about this, obviously there's going to be a lot more opened up over the week. We've really just kind of started off at the very beginning of this sentence, the very beginning of this exploration. But I'm happy to respond to anything that's in the field already. If you have any questions about this, then dive in. You can pop them in the chat. As I said, if you want to come on the screen and have more dialogue, that's possible. I know it's possible, and I will figure out how to do it. I haven't got it in front of my mind at this moment. But yeah, we will work that out. And certainly, if you have a question, pop it into the chat, and I will respond to that. Just a small word. I see there's a question there already. I will just leap into that. So kind of coming up next, the next word, notice how. Notice how. How is actually a real hinge word there. So here it was like, notice that. Notice this, notice that body, notice this body, and notice that it's changing. Notice all that's going on there. Things are changing. How are they changing though? What's making them change? What's encouraging change? What's encouraging origination and dissipation? I think it's a really interesting thing that we can look at. And it may relate to this question from Wendy. I often find I have tightness in the diaphragm area, and sometimes I can get a bit preoccupied with that, wanting softening there, but not necessarily experiencing that. Any suggestions? Yeah, thank you. So, I also get tightness in the diaphragm area. I also, when I kind of do a something like a body scan, like moving through the body, but with a clear intention, like that's actually really soften. And I do that because also knowing myself, and I think this may have come up in someone's earlier kind of reflections, or it may have been elsewhere, I can't remember, but like part of our experience is actually to know ourselves, oh yeah, I get this tightness in the diaphragm, or I tend to take myself seriously, or I tend to get agitated, I tend to worry, or whatever it is. Like we get to know those aspects about ourselves, and then we can have a tendency in our practice, I will take care of that. So I actually get a tightness in the belly. Might be different than the tightness in the diaphragm area, but I kind of notice that, and it's like I flow through, I've relaxed it. Oh yeah, now it feels relaxed. Maybe then I say, oh, maybe just relax the hands, relax the jaw, and if I check again with the belly, it's tightened up. If I'm not really careful, it can really start to happen there. So, as you mentioned, Wendy, we can get preoccupied with that. Wanting softening there, but not necessarily experiencing it. It might be that we can get there through different means, and that can be a helpful way of thinking about this. So we tend to look for what's not okay and spend most of our time attending to that, and that actually gives us a distorted view of actually how the situation's going. So we have a number of options, but let's start from maybe don't go there. Just don't go there. Could be the first one. It's not the final version, but yeah, you don't have to go there. Noticing means we have that freedom to notice different things. So maybe paying more attention there is actually kind of adding tension, and the attention is coming in a way it's like, come on, soften up, and it's not got the right mood, it's not got the right atmosphere, it's not bringing the right kind of qualities into being there. So you notice that, so actually maybe let's soften somewhere else, and that might help. So oftentimes places that can feel tight are tight because there's not enough space for the amount of energy that they have, or they're not feeling like they're allowed to flow. So what we could pay attention to more is there anywhere we can notice more space, get more spaciousness into the experience, so that we can pay attention to the breath in a wider sense. Kind of key tip is there's often more space behind us than we tend to pay attention to, because we tend to be kind of forward focused, the satellites of the ears and the eyes and the nose and the mouth, all the kind of pointing in this kind of direction. Yeah. There's lots of space behind us. So resting back into that space, we can rest back there. And again, without necessarily paying attention to the diaphragm, but we could also say, actually, I'm going to pay attention to the diaphragm, but very, very lightly, and not with a demand that it softens, but I just want you to know you've got all that space behind you to rest into as well. Yeah. There's a lot more space here. And in fact, if you feel deeper into the lower belly, how deep actually down does that go? I'm not aware of it actually having a bottom. I don't mean I haven't got a bottom, but the belly space, actually, if you feel into it, if you kind of come in through the body, feeling lower and lower into that space, it feels, in my consciousness, my imagination, perhaps my distorted view of things, but it feels that the perception of that is it's incredibly deep, incredibly deep. And maybe the diaphragm, feeling as a physiological thing, we're also picking up on it as an energetic entity and feeling maybe giving it that space. Giving it that space. If it wants to soften, it can soften. If it wants to stay tight, it can stay tight. But now it's got the space. Now it's got the space. And you might feel, just as we're talking about this, hopefully you're kind of listening along, practicing along, experimenting with that. You actually notice, oh yeah, that is doing something. It is doing something interesting, right? So as you said at the beginning, it's like we notice what we notice, but we also can see that's not the end. We notice, and it's not like, oh yeah, we fix and we fiddle and we do. No, we notice and we breathe deeper, we pay attention, we soften. We're always changing our experience. We're always playing a part. And so, that's part of that how. It's part of that how. It's like how we attend, how we notice changes how things arise and pass and move through. So we have that option. We can just choose to pay attention to something else, changing our experience in that way. Or we could choose to pay attention to that, but in a very different way than what we might normally do. And of course, there's also all those kind of possibilities of actually not wanting it to soften, not taking that as a central goal or whatever. You can have that. I wouldn't lean too much into that. I would say, yes, softening the diaphragm sounds like a really good thing to do. Who wants to be tight? What part of our body would really want to be tight? And we can encourage that to soften, to have the space, and to practice in those ways. So yeah, if you find somewhere that's tight, somewhere that feels blocked, would that like to be more flowing? Would it like to be more flowing? Once we have a lot of that spaciousness and that sensitivity available to us, we might actually notice it's not only tight. It's not only tight. When we're paying attention to it more and more, we might actually see that there's an inconstancy in there. There's a fluidity in there within what appears tight. And I'm going to touch into that more and more through the weeks. Actually, when we pay attention, I don't think you'll find anything has sufficient own existence to be able to be anything in any way over time. So, something really beautiful in that. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for supporting Sangha Live in your presence and in any other ways that you can keep it going, keep it flowing, keep it growing. And we'll see you soon. See you in the next session. All right. Thank you again.